All right, the mighty Aries Windvane. Nicknamed this old girl Mongo, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to kind of go through a detailed functionality of how to set it up, how it actually works, and hopefully be able to demonstrate it while we're out of the water. See how this thing sails the old mighty Sparrow, thousands and thousands of miles. All right, from the bottom up, we have our hydro blade, our blade that goes in the water, which is connected on this nice little hinge here. You release that, and then this can actually flip all the way up. We'll demonstrate that in a second. We have our main arm, which actually swivels back and forth, and then we have our two control arms that basically house the actual lines that control the tiller. Then the actual gear, and on top we're going to put a blade, a little wooden plank in there, and that's actually going to be utilized by the wind. Now, as far as the setup goes, it's pretty easy as far as the lines and everything. I utilize these two little clam cleats, or jam cleats if you will. There is a chain attachment where the ends of these lines would be connected by just a chain with a few links in it, and then that hooks into a bronze piece that you attach to your tiller. I haven't used that just because, you know, this system was already here, but I think I may be installing that on this next voyage, but that we'll sort of see. Okay, so our control lines are coming out of the actual unit, and they go up into these arms, one on each side. And once they come out, then they just need to crisscross, and this allows the boat to be steered in the correct direction. They're going to crisscross, and then they're going to go to one more block over here, which then means that the tiller is being laterally pulled. Now, as I move the tiller, you can see the actual blade is moving. Now, when you're actually underway, that is something that happens. That blade moves, and then it moves the tiller to correct your course and keep you headed in the right direction. Now, this is kind of the genius sort of behind a lot of this, is that we just use this very thin, it's about a 1/4 inch or a little less, piece of wood with 2 coats of varnish on it. It's balanced perfectly, but it's also breakaway. So if you have a huge wave that comes and nails Mongo, that is actually going to be the only thing you lose, and we always keep a few of them on the boat so that we can make sure we can replace it pretty quickly. I've only ever had to do that once. The other thing we're going to have is a little thing of, I use 3-in-1 oil. You can use pretty much almost anything, but that's going to be the daily lube, which I'll show you where we go through on that. All right, and this is where our blade actually fits in up here. We're going to unscrew that, slot the blade in, try and make it as vertical as possible. And essentially, as this thing rotates, as this twists when the boat goes off course and the wind hits it, because our wind is essentially going to be going straight past this thing, so the blade isn't affected. But when the boat turns too far downwind or too far upwind, that's what's going to go ahead and kick this over. And what we see happening here is that our blade turns, and when we're moving forward, that means that blade turns. So then it's going to go off to the side and you're good to go. That's what corrects the course. Now, as far as moving parts, this is pretty much it. It's just got this little gear, which again allows the hydro blade to pivot. Oh, I'm gonna have to sort that guy out. Jeez, that was a leftover. Essentially, this is what allows you to pivot. And everything is locked into place. We have lock nuts there, so that's easily adjustable. You can push that back. Inside here is another linkage bolt, and I tape that so it can't fall out. But the big thing is this giant pin that rests on everything, and now they put bushings in to allow for easy access. You can just push that right out once you get rid of the lock nut under here, and then there's another one on the other side. Now for oiling, I pretty much every single morning, I hit a little spot there, a little spot there. I'm gonna hit this little area, anywhere where you have bushings moving, where anything is gonna be going up and down. Then I come back and I hit up here, and I hit up there, and I get there, and a little bit in the gears here, drop a little bit in right there. And then there is on the side, if you can find it, oh geez, there's a little tiny hole on one of the sides to be able to put a little bit of oil in as well. It's around there somewhere, and that'll go down into the shaft in there, because there is another bushing. And you do that every single day, and wow, it keeps everything nice and lubricated. Sometimes I'll throw a couple drops just in here, and that allows for that mechanism. All right, there she is in all her glory. So she's set up. Now essentially, again, this higher side than the low side there is always going to be the one pointed into the wind, because we want our wind just passing right beyond this thing, so that if the boat goes off course, all of a sudden it hits it a little on one side, and that's going to go ahead and push the wind blade over, which then in turn pivots our hydro blade. When that hydro blade gets pivoted, now all of a sudden what you're going to have is it, because it's moving through the water and it has a lot of leverage, which in turn is going to then turn the tiller as well. And when it's tuned just right, man, oh man, does it do a great job. It should be negatively balanced so that it would just sit in any place you were going to put it. If the blade is too heavy, for a long time back in the day when I was trying to figure this out, I actually was coating some of these in fiberglass, which is a terrible idea. One, it made it too heavy, and then two, it also made it so that it wouldn't break away when it needed to. You know, lessons learned. There wasn't a lot of instructional videos on YouTube about it, but yeah, essentially that's kind of it. Now, I do want to show you exactly how you change the angle of that. So you're headed upwind, downwind, across the wind. You're always going to be adjusting and tuning the wind vane to keep a nice straight course, and your sails. So almost think of it as another sail. Now on each side, we've got two lines, and these are the clicker lines. And each time you click, that is supposed to be 6 degrees of course change. So when I click it this way, that means I'm turning a little further into the wind or to this direction. So when I click it, it goes that same direction. And you can go, so now you can see the blade is facing much further forward, so we'd be going upwind. If we want to go across the wind, we're going to click, 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 click until she's basically flat, and the wind would again be going across, just basically bypassing this blade unless you go off course. And then if we're going downwind, we want to face it. There's a nice little broad reach, deep broad reach. And you just kind of fine tune it and adjust it to the course you want. So that's pretty much an Aries wind vane. It's just its strength is in its simplicity, and it is just a beautiful little setup. You don't need much. It doesn't take very long to sort it out and figure it out. The mounts for this thing are absolutely amazing. They go right into the boomkin. There's a multitude of those for different styles of boats if it's being put directly onto a transom. Luckily, the West Sail, it's almost like perfectly made for this boat. One of the reasons that I really prefer using the Aries is that on a West Sail 32, this is a barn door of a rudder, and I want to utilize that to every advantage. And the Aries, instead of having its own rudder, which the Hydrovane is a fantastic wind vane for sure, and I've used those on West Sails as well. But for my money, I'm looking for an Aries so that I can utilize this gigantic tiller, the big rudder, the barn door, so that when I'm crushing it down, surfing 20-foot swell in the Southern Ocean, she's just tracking and she reacts very quickly. Mongo on that trip, which was just a hair under 30,000 miles, Mongo steered 99.9% of that. I almost never actually touch this tiller. Just have to make my adjustments, make sure it doesn't have much slack, it's nice and taut but not tight, and keep it oiled, and you should be pretty much good to go. Give you years and years and thousands of miles of service, and all you have to do is every single day Give it a good look over, make sure nothing's wiggling loose, because everything on this is essentially in motion 24 hours a day. One of the things that is a bit of a picadillo is you don't want to be motoring with this arm down. It gets a lot of disturbance from there, and that's one of the reasons that some of the bushings are a little worn out on this. I need to get the replacement parts, which you can order. But essentially, when I'm gonna motor for a good long while, I'm gonna go ahead and kick that guy up. That falls down. And now this thing angles up like that. There we go. And I just pull down on that to secure it. And now it's tight, it's out of the water and out of the way, and there's no drag on it, and you can motor just a little bit faster. And I think lastly, one of the top tips I would have for anybody utilizing one of these, you can see that we've got quite a bit of extra, about 6 feet on either side. Now there's a reason for that. Essentially, at these two blocks here and there, the angle is so abrupt, and because the Aries is in constant motion out there, moving, you're gonna get quite a bit of chafe for about 6 to 8 inches outside of this block. And what you typically want to do if you're on a long ocean passage, you keep an eye on it. Sometimes I would use grease, that seems to work a bit, but eventually that jacket is going to start to wear out. But rather than replace the entire line, because it's about 20 feet long or so, what I like to do is back here, where it's tied off here and it bottoms out on these two sides, you go ahead and you ease the line back on the tiller, and then you're going to go ahead and pull this line down by about 1.5 feet, tie another stopper knot, cut that part off, and then now you've essentially moved where the area of chafe is back to about here. Doesn't seem to do much on these blocks back there or even on the actual Aries, but for some reason these always seem to get it. So if you leave a little extra, you'll get a good 3 to 6 months. Well, I wouldn't say 6, 3 to 4 months out of one entire line before you have to replace the whole thing. Well, there you have it, folks. I don't know, hopefully that gave you a little bit of a good description about the old Aries Windvane. This one was purchased in 2017. I don't know if they've made any improvements since then, but Mighty Sparrow used to have one from the 1970s probably, and it worked really well, but there was a decent amount of corrosion and everything like that. These are heavy duty aluminum, and they do have a couple of stainless steel bolts, so you got to use a Tef gel for that. But other than that, yeah, this one's going out to Joseph because he was asking about this and how it operated, and hopefully that helped. I will put a link in the description because I did a video a long time ago of the Aries in operation while I was out sailing. So if you watch this one and now you go and watch that one, you might actually help wrap your head around it, because when I was researching these things, it was very difficult to find any information on how these things actually operated. Thanks for watching, and until next time.